Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink, brought to you as always by our incredible local friends in Waggle Golf, 9 Mile Brewing, and of course, Barrel Theory Beer Company. With me as always, Joe Smith of The Athletic, bringing you all your insider info on your Minnesota Wild and Gopher hockey. And we're recording here Monday night, fresh off of the national championship conclusion, and a bit of a catch-22, I guess, for you, Joe. Ohio State, the Ohio State University, and Notre Dame, two not friendly programs for your Michigan Wolverines. How did we fare?
Well, I mean, you can look at it a couple ways. You can look at it like Michigan beat them again, and which spurred on this incredible run Ohio State went on. Or you can go in as two of the biggest rivals in Michigan history playing for a national championship, and one of them's going to win. So they can't both lose. So yeah, it's, you can go with the nitty gritty in the game and some coaching decisions made by Notre Dame and whatever. But, Ohio State won 4 straight games against playoff caliber teams. So, it's hard to completely go off the rails here. But yeah, that wasn't a game that if you're from Michigan or you went to school at Michigan is not your favorite thing to watch on a Monday night.
It probably feels a little bit better after winning the Natty last year, but I can definitely understand where you're coming from. I know they're not going to think this tonight, tomorrow, probably not in the next month, but like in the next year or two, do you think it's going to sting a little bit for Ohio State that they can't even like chirp Michigan about this championship because like every Michigan fan is going to come back with like, oh yeah, what happened? We played that year.
Well, and again, I don't know, like if I were them and I won a national championship, would I care? Like
Ohio State fans are fragile.
Well, like again, like if I won a national championship and I held that trophy up and I did it like 20 years from now, will people remember that they lost to Michigan 13-10? I will, but will anybody else remember that?
That's the right answer. That's the right answer.
I mean, with Jeremiah Smith, is in his 10th All-Pro season in the NFL, is like, oh yeah, we beat Notre Dame. You beat Michigan? Nah, no one remember that. But like, I don't know. It's funny how the world works, and I know this system is going to be imperfect and whatever, and I still think that now the system is going to kind of ensure that these rivalry games end of the season don't mean as much. I think if you can't win a conference championship, you probably shouldn't win a national championship. But, so you get the week off and you don't have to worry about losing again in the next round and then seeing what happens. And I get there's either way, you can't just have the reason why they have these bigger tournament fields is to make sure everybody's included, and Ohio State had to win 4 games versus 3 or whatever. But it just feels weird that a team that doesn't win their conference championship or go to conference championship wins a national championship.
Yeah, and to be honest, even to not go at Ohio State, but just think about Oregon getting the number 1 overall seed and having the bracket that they had to get through. Like you get the bye week, which arguably isn't a benefit. Then they have to play Ohio State, who got their mojo back and came in buzzing, and like, boom, buzzsaw, done. I wonder, do they expand it? Do they overcorrect and immediately go to 16 teams?
Well, I don't think it needs to go more, honestly. I think it should go less. There should be 8 teams or whatever. I don't think it should be more than 12. And
I could work with that.
And I know anytime you have it, it's 2 teams, it should be 4. If it's 4 teams, it should be 6 or whatever. But there are some teams in this playoffs that, you knew that they shouldn't have been there, or probably they weren't real games, and I guess the idea is that this will reward the true best team, because the true best team will win 4 straight games of this magnitude to win it. Like Ohio State did beat 4, at least in the rankings considerations, 4 legitimate teams like Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame. Like those were teams that were ranked, fair or not, as high as they were. So, if you do that, It's better, in theory, it's better than just winning one game like a Rose Bowl at the end of a year. But anyways, it just, I haven't watched the Michigan game and then all of a sudden that happening. So it's, it was just an interesting night to watch. And hey, if you win a championship, you walk together forever and it'll be special for all those kids. And Michigan had that last year and should make the rivalry even better next year.
That is for sure. We are here to talk hockey. Quick rundown. Got to talk about an interesting weekend between the Gophers and Notre Dame. Plenty of Wild talk and an interview with Nick Bjugstad ahead of the Thursday matchup, Wild versus Utah Hockey Club. And we get out of here with some hot takes. Joe, the last 2 weeks, the Gophers actually played the two teams in the national championship. Now that I think about it, that just clicked for me, but Ohio State and then Notre Dame. This weekend was weird. Gophers basically won the first and sixth periods of the weekend, and that was about the extent of it. Someone that you're very familiar with in the hockey media landscape, who we won't name, basically said, watching the warm-ups for that first game on Friday, this goalie's going to let up like 15 goals. And sure enough, was pacing for it in the first period and got yanked. Gophers absolutely dominated that first period. And then, I don't know, didn't really like how they finished. I know Bob came in and said third period of that game, he did actually like the resolve of the team and they kind of got back to their game, but no goals in the second or third. And they kind of came back into Saturday night much the same. It's tough to beat a team 4 times in one season. So Notre Dame got their one overtime win, but I don't know. I think it just means we've got that much more on the line looking forward to next week against Michigan State.
And that'll be a heck of a matchup, right? I mean, remember the games that were in Minnesota, was a month ago now or a few weeks ago now? Can't remember, but the college hockey season is such a weird thing, right? Because it's not nearly as long as the NHL season, to where like a 2-game losing streak feels like a 4-game losing streak or whatever. And you have to sit on those a little longer. And the rankings go up and down and whatever. But like I said in last week's episode, as long as they're treading in the right direction and peaking towards tournament time, and being healthy, then that's all that really kind of matters at this point. The seeding will be important, a conference is important, but clearly they're going to be, like you said, it's hard to beat a team 4 times in one season. So, but I think that's something they should learn from, no doubt. But I think as they get along the season, it just, the dog days of the season are in January, February for NHL and for college hockey. And that's part of it.
Yeah, for sure. And on the health front, team is largely back to full strength. Other than late in the Friday night game, Jimmy Clark did take a cross check to the back. He sat out on Saturday, but everyone else appears to be healthy. Jimmy Snuggerud is heating up. He is very much looking like prime Jimmy Snuggerud in every sense of it. Luke Mittelstadt with a highlight reel goal going coast to coast, backhand, top shelf. Bob and actually Paulson too in the post-game availability on Saturday. We'll just say not very happy with the reffing late in that game on Saturday. Oh my goodness, Joe. Pretty much from the 10-minute mark in the third period on, including overtime, you would have had to pull out a prison shank if you were maybe going to get away. It was nuts. And they weren't shy about it. And I don't disagree at all. But end of the day, you put yourself in that position. That's what happens. But yeah, Michigan State can be a huge one. And they dropped one to Michigan this past weekend too. We were ahead of them for one night in the standings, but that flipped back. This one's going to be big, especially, looking forward. After that, it's a home series with Wisconsin. Then it's on the road to Michigan. These next 3 weeks are going to tell a lot of the tale of how we're going to round out the rest of this season. So buckle up, Gopher fans.
Good for Charlie Stramel, actually. He had a heck of a night last weekend. was it 2 goals and assists, like almost a Hattie watch. So
he's been looking great.
If you're a Wild fan looking at the positives, the prospects situation, and I still think he's going to be staying at MSU for another year. I think that's the plan as of now. But if you're thinking about the Charlie Stramel of last year and what people were thinking of versus now, I think you're seeing him play in a top role on a really, really good team. So it's not like he's playing on a bottom feeder and they're just giving him minutes because he's the best player and big fish in a small pond. Like, you're playing on a national title contender and you're playing high leverage minutes. That's going to do a lot for him.
Absolutely. Quick word from one of our partners here before we get into Wild Talk. Hey, Fellowship of the Rink listeners, January is the perfect time to swing by 9 Mile Brewing, Bloomington's first and only tap room, where our friends are serving up some incredible brews. Whether you're taking a break from alcohol or not, they've got you covered with their brand new NA Hoppy Wheat Ale, full of bold, hoppy flavor without the buzz. And for those craving something a bit juicier, check out Grace of the Goddess, their juicy IPA, or you can sip on the smooth Kernzabon alt beer or simple twist of grain, their crisp Kernza lager. Both brewed with the Kernza grain, if you couldn't pick it up from the names. And keep your taste buds on alert. They did actually just drop this past week, Bumbleberry Sour. All of you that are into the sweet, fruity, any kind of sour beer, get out there and give it a try. And make sure before you run through January, every Thursday, the THC Thrive 4-pack BOGO. And, of course, check out all of their events at 9milebrewing.com. That's the number 9, MILEBREWING.com. You can check out both this week and looking forward to their legendary birthday cribbage tournament, Thursday, February 6th. $200 cash prize up for grabs. Check it out. All right, Joe. I thought we were past this for the most part with everyone getting back into the lineup, except for the headliners that we've kind of been rolling week to week here. But you were on the ground there in Denver, and do we have a Jakub Lauko concern now?
Actually, he seemed okay. He came back to the game in the third period.
Okay.
Which is good news considering he had that groin injury and re-aggravated it and was out since mid-December and came back on Saturday. So afterwards, everything seems okay.
Good.
So at least that's on the positive side. And, in theory, Kirill, Kaprizov, Spurgeon, and Brodin are on their way to getting back. There's not a definite on Thursday against Utah, but I think we'll know a lot more Wednesday for their full team practice, who's in and who's out. But that's what made, I think, Monday's win over Colorado such an impressive one for me is, lose 3 in a row, 4 of 5, get a beat down in Nashville and playing a Colorado team. If you play that way, you're going to get a touchdown put on you. And they really play one of their more structured, smart, overall well-defended games of the season, and without 2 of their top defensemen and their top player, and held them to 11 shots in 2 periods. Obviously, the Avalanche had to push in the third after they were down 3-1 to make it, more even in the shot attempt total. But, clearly that was one of those kind of gut check or character wins that they've had plenty of this season. When I wrote on Sunday that they had to act fast before this kind of slipped out of control because of all the Utah coming in Thursday and Calgary who's pushing. So give credit where credit's due for that team, to come up and win in Colorado, which they don't usually do, and to hold them in check like they did. It says a lot about the group and kind of finding a way instead of letting it kind of continue to grow.
For sure. And I mean, obviously not the result you want on Saturday in Nashville, but had to have been fun covering just every bit of the Gong show that ensued early on in the game.
Yeah, I mean, 3 fights in the first 7 minutes, and I think we all kind of knew something wasn't happening. And then even when Marcus Foligno told us in The Athletic for their Monday Insider about something had to be done, a price had to be paid, and it's the code, which has been forever in hockey, and him and Luke Shen spoke in warm-ups, and Shen was like, "What's going to happen with this kid?" And I talked it out, and I think it was fitting that Trenin was the one who fought him. The former Predator there, and and then Shen and Foligno fought, and Hartman fought too. Like, and you wondered if it took away from some other focus and the rhythm of the game to have so many fights early on over this rookie forward who injured Jared Spurgeon, which was a very dangerous and dirty hit, but wasn't the only reason why they lost that game in that stretch. But yeah, like that was coming, and the group's a pretty tight team, and wasn't surprised that they stood up for each other. But it was kind of all seemed like a sideshow compared to what was important, which was the game. And that was one of those games where you think that they would have to win that in the schedule that they have. But Nashville's been playing a lot better lately, and that was one of those moments for them that could be defining in their stretch. But it still was, yes, it was fun to cover, but they lose like 6-2, and no one's happy at that point.
Yeah, and there's been some line shuffling, obviously, with the injuries and some of the call-ups. Have you seen anyone that you feel like in particular has like gelled and played really well together? Or on the flip side, are there any lines that you think need to be ousted?
Well, I mean, I think the focus right now is getting Eric Sinek going. He's been one of their best players in recent years, and two-way players, and a guy I've considered as a Selke caliber guy if he could get the faceoffs in order. And it's been a rough year for him overall. I'm sure he's playing hurt just from watching him walk around after games. He's a tough player, but he hasn't really been as impactful as previous seasons. And there are probably a lot of reasons for that. His line shuffling has been so much. He's been bouncing around and all that. But they put him up with Boldy and Zuccarello in Denver, probably with the attempts of shuffling things up and getting more going. And he was active in front of the net. And he did take 3 penalties, which maybe 1 or 2 weren't warranted. But he had 3 penalties, which John Hines called a hat trick on Monday. But it's really important considering the depth that they have to have Eric Sinek be one of those guys they can counter every night that they have. And he hasn't really been as much that guy as he has been in years past. So what they can do to switch things up? It did help Ogren. On Monday, he had his best game as a NHL player, 2 assists, +3 after beat a -4, -3 on Saturday. Showed why he made some strides at Iowa and could be an NHL player, whether it's now or next year. Juracek had a hell of a game. Almost scored the robbery by Blackwood in the first period, and then had a heck of a move to set up the go-ahead game winner by Trenin. So some promising signs by the prospects there. But yeah, the lines will go back to normal once Kaprizov gets back, or they hope that it's Thursday.
Yeah, and on that point, 'cause the biggest thing I've been seeing, whether it's on like comments from our YouTube channel or things I'm seeing on Twitter, what do you make of the Wild blue line if and when they're back to full health? Like, there's a lot of guys that are like just the Chisholm and Juracek pairing looks awesome, and those are 2 guys that started the year when we were playing really good weren't even in the lineup. How does this shake out? Are guys getting traded? Are there just guys that are going to be sitting and watching? And who do you think rounds out the top 6 when it's all said and done?
Well, I think it'll be Brody and Spurgeon, Middleton, Faber, Bogosian will still be on the roster. I think Dermott will get sent down and through waivers. Sure. At this point, if you do a complete like upside, meritocracy has only been a few games for Juracek, right? He hasn't had a larger body of work, and he's trending up. But he has to go through waivers to get sent down, and so I think he might end up being the guy who gets sent down, and that way you have Merrill and Chisholm as your 6th and 7th D, or hint all 3 of them with Bogosian. So, be Dermott and Juracek. If you're in roster management mode and you're not like in a cutthroat, ruthless mode where you just put John Merrill on waivers, whatever, right? And
Sure.
I don't think that's something that the Wild would traditionally do. And Merrill played well on Monday too. I'm not saying he's been, whatever, really bad, but like, so I think at that point, have Juracek have this moment and the confidence booster and show he can he can play at this level. And odds are there'll be more injuries in the next 3 weeks, like just the way that things have been going. He'll be back up again. But if you're in roster protection mode and not want to put people through waivers, you don't think he'll go through waivers or whatever, then I think that might be the move. Even though Juracek is showing some promise and some of the reasons why that they acquired him. I think the people who were in the he can't skate camp are going to be not want to watch that game on Monday, since he showed he can really pitch in the zone and he can really make some plays. So, could see why people are excited about him. That doesn't mean that either he gets sent down in the next week is not an indictment on him as a player. It's more so of like where they are now on the roster they have, and knowing they don't have a lot of NHL ready D in Iowa if they lose somebody.
And it all seems pretty black and white for me, with the exception of a guy like Declan Chisholm. Like, do you want him to be there as your 6 or 7 guy, or be like a fallback guy for potential injury? Or is this a guy who like is playing really well and you capitalize on what he's doing and get something back before the trade deadline, just knowing like, is there a spot for him next year? Like, I'm a big fan of Chisholm's game, so I'm not asking for this. I'm more just curious about how you think the organization looks at it.
I mean, it's a good point, and it depends on what is available at the deadline. And I think we all kind of assume the Zeev Biome will be on the roster after the Frozen Four and next year. And, it's an assumption still. It's not a guarantee. Like, not everybody is a Brock Faber who's ready to jump in and run and play in the playoffs in his second NHL game or whatever it is. So want to temper some expectations on that, even though I think he's going to be a terrific player. But I don't know if I see him as a huge trade bait at the deadline. And I think that with the amount of injuries that have gone on, they've been fortunate they've had people who could play NHL caliber minutes on defense. And with the injuries that guys are coming off of, you never know if they get re-aggravated. So they're just not guys in the AHL right now. Like, I like Spacek and a couple of guys there, but they're not ready to step in. They're no Damon Hunt, right? That's just ready to you come in and pop in and play. So that'd be my thing of Chisholm. Let it play out, see what happens with Zeev or whatever, and then you can decide on him in the summertime.
Very fair. So anything you feel like I missed, or anything you really wanted to hit on for the Minnesota Wild before we kick it over to our chat with Nick Bjugstad?
Well, like, I just think this has been a crucial stretch, and they had that lost 3 in a row, 4 of 5, but to win a game against Colorado, they know how rough it's been against Western Conference playoff teams and teams in top 3. So that was a big win for them. And I just want to see them, everybody healthy against the top teams and see how that works. I think that a lot of times the last year they haven't been fully healthy playing against some of these top Western Conference teams. So be curious to see how it all plays out. But it was impressive to see kind of, the makeup of this team seems different than they did last year, as far as being resilient and mentally tough and finding ways when they are in a slide. So, the decisions for the roster will be coming up, and we'll know more after this episode drops, because there'll be practice on Wednesday and more guys will be part of that group. But overall, they're hanging on number 2 spot in the Central Division in a really tight race, and there's no room for error there with the guys that are the teams that are pushing up.
Yeah, that is a fact. Well, let's do it then. Let's kick it over to a great interview. Awesome guy, and Nick Bjugstad, bit of a journeyman. 3 years with the Gophers. Spent some time here with your Wild. Minnesotan through and through. Mr. Hockey, Blaine, you name it. Nick Bjugstad of Utah Hockey Club. This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it. That makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwagalon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order. Joining the show today is one of us by way of Blaine, Minnesota, spending 3 years with both Blaine High School and your Golden Gophers, spending time with, I guess, 5 or 6 NHL teams, depending on how you want to look at it. And among that, 2 years with your Minnesota Wild, Nick Bjugstad. Appreciate you jumping on with us, Nick.
Yeah, guys, we'll go with 5 on this counts as 1, Utah, Arizona.
All right.
We're running out of space on the wall for jerseys at home. So
you still got like 3 or 4 more to go before you hit Mark Parrish level. So you're good.
There you go. Yeah. Is that how many did he play for? Was that 8?
I think it was 8 or 9.
Yeah. Perry's awesome. Well, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, appreciate it.
Of course. And you, obviously, Minnesota guy through and through. Something we ask a lot of our guests, a little bit of a Rorschach test. Minnesota Wild logo. What is it? Like, what do you see when you look at that thing?
I'm going bear. I never, until I started playing for the Wild, I guess I never really looked too deep into it with the trees and whatnot. But I'm a fan of the logo. I like the logo.
Like, as you can see, this is Fellowship of the Rink is the podcast name, a little Lord of the Rings stick tap for our love of the movies and the books. Are you a Lord of the Rings fan at all, or no?
Yeah, I am. I'm not a diehard, but if it's on TV, I'll watch it. Yeah, I enjoy Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. But yeah, I like the name, guys. Good choice.
I wasn't sure if you had a nerd itch or something that's kind of off the wall thing you're interested in, like something you collect or like a certain hobby. Like I know pickleball is a thing you're big into, right? So, but anything else that you're kind of will be your nerd itch, I guess, if you had to be called one.
My buddy always says I'm one self-help book away from figuring it out. So I'm into psychology and just kind of that area. So I guess if I had to be a nerd in anything, it's maybe self-help books, I'll call it. Psychology books.
Does that be your job if you didn't play hockey? Kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't know. If I hadn't played hockey, I think I was going the teacher route, maybe gym teacher and high school hockey coach. But yeah, I don't know. When I'm done playing, I'm sprinkling into that department. I think we'll see where it takes me. But yeah, very interested on how the mind works and everything that goes along with that.
Very interesting. That's not an answer I expected, but I like it.
Yeah, I don't have anything. I wish I had something cooler. But I have 3 kids that I'm chasing around usually. So that's kind of my, I guess, hobby or what I do in my downtime. So they keep me busy.
Yeah, pretty all-encompassing hobby.
Yeah.
And I know Hankinson kind of tipped us off. Joe mentioned it there a second ago, the pickleball thing. Like, is this something that's just deep-rooted and you're kind of running train on everything in the cul-de-sac, or what's the deal there?
Oh, you talked to Hank. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, last summer I didn't get to do much of it. But we actually, cul-de-sac, we had a hole. We painted the lines. We had our own little makeshift pickleball setup with all the neighbors. And I played tennis growing up a little bit. So I picked up pickleball as I've gotten older and less limber. But I will say, my pickleball time the last year has gone down, unfortunately, with the kids. It's usually what they want to do. But if I get a chance to play pickleball, I'm into it. Tennis, any type of racket sports, I'm into. My buddy Justin Hall, who I played with in Minnesota, we played a lot when we were in college and early in our professional careers, and I'd always beat him. And now that guy plays almost 6 days a week, I think I'd say. And yeah, he puts me to shame. So Justin Hall's on the radar. I think probably him and Brock Nelson in the cities probably some of the best racket sports players as far as hockey guys go.
And you like say you played a little bit of tennis. Like, be honest here. Like, take a second to brag a little bit about your high school career.
Oh, okay, yeah. It sounds way cooler than it was. I played my senior year, just signed up, or my last year of high school, signed up for tennis, wanted to try something new because I played quite a bit when I was younger, just recreationally, never organized. So I wanted to see what I could do out there. And I ended up playing second, third pairing for doubles, and we went 18-0, my partner and I. So they made it sound way cooler. I think it's on my draft YouTube video. When they're announcing when I got drafted by Florida, he's an unbelievable tennis player, which was not. I mean, I was okay. My partner was really good, and I'd basically just go to the net, and they called us the Twin Towers. So I had to miss the sectionals for the combine, so I felt bad for my partner. Kind of left him to dry there, but not that good. I'd say I'm pretty average, but it sounds way cooler that I was 18-0 with my partner. So yeah, I'll give a lot of credit to him.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So I know there's like a hierarchy as far as like top golfers in NHL. Like Pavelski was that guy, whatever like that. Is there top tennis players in NHL? Like I know Dominic Moore. I used to cover him. He was like probably really good tennis player. Probably a lot of the Europeans are really good tennis players. Like, is there like a known around the league like top guys?
Yeah, so I get to hear from Hall. Hall's like Justin Hall is a good friend of mine and an avid tennis watcher and player, fan. I think that Nylander is legit from what he makes it sound like. I think they played quite a bit in Toronto, but as I said, I kind of just familiar with the Minneapolis guys. Haven't played Brock Nelson, but I will at some point. Heard he's elite. Who else we got? I think Jake Gardner's pretty good. Halsey would probably say he's on the top of the totem pole in the city, though. So I don't know. You guys will have to ask him about it. I think he's worked his way up. He trains pretty hard for. I think that's kind of his cross training in the summer. So.
And you're getting into skiing now too. I'm sorry to hear Jackie got a little bit banged up, right?
Yeah. No skiing on my end. I can't risk any type of injury. But yeah, my wife and all the girlfriends, they were out skiing. That was probably 3-4 weeks ago now, and she tore her ACL. So she was really enjoying it. Came to a quick end, and she's hurting right now. She's a tough cookie, but had the surgery and everything, and have my mother-in-law in town helping us out. Thankful for that. So yeah, we wanted to, as a family, I guess, kind of enjoy it. My kids are in ski lessons, and they're loving it. So we're kind of trying to take advantage of living in Utah and being close to the mountains.
So Jackie is lower body day-to-day then, that's right?
She's long-term IR. She's out indefinitely, and yeah, I don't know. She's an athlete, so she knows what it's like to go through rehabs and whatnot, but not ideal when you got 3 kids at home, but she's getting through it. So it's been an interesting few weeks, but you pay the price to play some of these sports. You roll the dice, playing pickleball, tennis, whatever it is. Stuff happens. So, and we're not getting any younger.
Fair. Well, you mentioned Justin Hall there a couple times, and you played on like 3 really good Gopher teams. A lot of guys that are either still playing in the league, playing overseas, whatever. Talk about like the locker room though. Like, was that a really tight group? Are you still in touch with a lot of those guys, or is it just a couple of guys that you're in tight touch with?
Yeah, it was a close group. Awesome. We had, I think, 10 guys coming in together that 2010 year. We had Hall, Justin Hall, Mark Alt, Nate Schmidt, and we had a lot of guys that made it to the next level. So we kind of, we trained together in the summers. We went to school together in the summers. So we were kind of together year round. So we became really close, and we got to push each other. It was a group that freshman year we didn't do very good. And then the next 2 years we were, I think, top 5 in the country most of the time. So we didn't win a national championship, still haunts me, but we had some good squads. and college to me is some of the most pure hockey you can play. Obviously, it's different now with NIL and whatnot, but for me, there's no money involved. It was all pride. It was, you're with some of your best buddies, and playing for the Gophers for me was kind of like as a kid. If I made it to the Gophers, that's like it was like the NHL. That was, I didn't have the Wild till I was probably 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
So I really looked up to those early 2000 teams that won the national championships, and the relationships you still hold it today with the guys you roomed with and had a lot of good times with. It's something I'll cherish forever. So yeah, we all keep in touch, and obviously we're getting families are expanding and we're getting busier, but every time we get together, it's like it's 2011 again. So yeah, definitely love those guys. And the Gophers was, I don't know, I couldn't believe when I went on my visit and they offered. It was like me and my dad were looking at each other like it didn't seem real. So I'm very fortunate to have played there.
That's awesome. And with some of these guys, like, are there any that surprised you one way or the other? Are there guys you played with that you're like, I really thought this guy was going to go on and torch in the NHL, or a guy that has had a longer career and you're like, I didn't see that coming, but it's awesome?
Well, Schmitty was a free agent. Nate Schmidt's had a great career. Obviously, he's had some great years. Justin Hall, he was playing forward our third year, my junior year there. So it was kind of I don't know if he really expected what was going to happen going forward, but he grinded it out, played in the East Coast League, and made it to the NHL. So that's impressive on his end. It's hard to say because we're drafted as 17-year-olds, or all the projections are made when you're still going through puberty and still kind of figuring out who you are. So it's hard to really know who's going to pan out, who's not. But I think playing Division I hockey for anyone, it's an impressive accomplishment. So yeah, I think like you got the Kyle Rouse, who he was always a killer from high school hockey. I played against him from squirts on. And
have you talked to him since he signed in China?
No, I haven't. And I didn't know that. So thank you for the news. I'm gonna have to text
online. I don't know how true it is because like it's KHL. Who knows what the hell's going on over there? But yeah. Supposedly he's playing for like one of the China-based teams.
Wow. All right. Good. Because I didn't know. I see Kyle in the summers, and we keep in touch. We were roommates in college, but great player. He's always had that. He's always had the goal scoring instinct, even though he's not the biggest guy on the ice. And I've always admired guys like that. That he just works. He's got that dog in him, as the kids say nowadays. So I hope he's still playing, because I know the last couple of months he's been kind of waiting. So
I know you mentioned college hockey is probably the most pure, or at least it has been in the past, pure hockey you can play, other than your backyard rink, growing up. But what are those emotions like when you're a guy who's maybe a days away from signing an NHL contract? You're a first round pick, and like you're with the boys for one last time, one last run. Like Brock Faber went through it, and a lot, Nyes went through it. Those guys, like those emotions are probably like, hey, I want to be in the moment, but I also know like 2 days away, I don't want to get injured because I'm going to be playing the NHL. Like what's the kind of balance there and the emotions you're feeling between two worlds?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's hard to, when you're in flux of should I sign or stay? I was kind of deciding my sophomore year if I was going to leave. That was the lockout that year in 2012-13. So for me, you want to be able to develop as much as possible and be as ready as possible when you get to the NHL level. So the decision to stay, that was a huge part of it. And honestly, I wanted to win a national championship with those guys. And junior year was probably our best shot at it. We made the Frozen Four the year before with a great team too. But junior year, we lost in regionals and overtime on kind of a fluky goal. And, when that ended, that hit me pretty hard. Those were 3 years that, I really wanted to be able to try to win a national championship. But, as far as the decision goes, there's so much with the teams and kind of where you're at and if you're going to get to play right away. But yeah, it was tough. It was a tough one to swallow when we lost that regional game. But, the next year they made it to the final game. They made it to the championship game. So it says a lot about that team and that group, the culture that we all got to be a part of. So, yeah, I can't say enough about that group, and would have liked to held a trophy over our heads, but only one team at the end of the year does it, and it's hard to do when it's one game elimination. So
yeah,
we'll die on that sword.
What can you tell us about the Nick Bjugstad rule at the Beauty League?
Oh, yeah, that's another Hank. I figured Hank would be firing dirt on you or dirt on me to you guys, but yeah, when I was a kid, I remember I had Matt Hendricks. He was kind of my idol, and he would always, when I was around, he'd sign stuff for me. When he was Blaine High School, he gave me a stick when I was a kid, and I'll never forget how that made me feel. So the Beauty League, it's hard to say no to these kids when they're waiting around, asking for autographs and whatnot. So we're pretty fortunate with the amount of sticks we get. But at one point, Hank was like, "You got to stop giving sticks out because the other guys, they don't, they might not have enough for the summer stock and whatnot." But yeah, it eventually those days dwindled a bit. But those are some fun times going to the Beauty League, just seeing the Minnesota fans and how much they love hockey in July is a sight to see in itself. So yeah, I don't know. As a guy that was that kid, I try to put myself in that perspective when kids are asking for stuff, and if I have something available, I'm probably going to give it to them. So yeah, Hank made that rule.
Speaking out, it's almost like the red carpet out there at the Beauty League when you guys walk out. Like, it's crazy how much fans really love that, and it's a really cool experience. And I figured the red carpet was similar to what you guys experienced going into Utah. Like, I saw the videos of your guys' first plane ride in there to visit. I don't know if you could put that in perspective. Like, you've been in the league a long time. Like, how unique was that? The first arrival and as a new guys who are part of that group.
Yeah, it was crazy. We were flying there, and we didn't know when we landed in the hangar. When we pulled in, it was full of youth hockey players and their families, and we had no idea. They were going crazy, and we had no idea that was coming. And we got kind of the tour of the city the rest of the day, and then went to the Delta Center and had a little pep rally, we'll call it. And it wasn't very little; it was sold out. And kind of what we were coming from. We were looking at each other before we were getting announced, like, this doesn't seem real. We have a fan base that has never seen us really, and we've never seen them, but they were cheering for us like we had won the Stanley Cup that year, So and it's been nothing but great things since. The fans here are incredible and very passionate. So grateful for that, and the transition's been super seamless and enjoyable for myself, and I think I speak for everyone else. Everyone's loved it so far.
Yeah, and going back to the last year in Arizona, obviously a lot of emotions and things going into knowing that it's all coming to an end, but how plugged in is the locker room, and how much are you guys talking about all of the chaos that's happening outside between ownership? At one point, the owner's kid took over all the social media accounts, I think. Things were getting a little unhinged. And, I mean, outside viewing, it was very funny. But for you guys, I can't imagine that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the team had been, even before I arrived, there were always talks, right? So we just kind of sat on that and just said, you know what, we can't worry about, the potential of moving. And, it's the typical athlete mindset of one day at a time, control the controllables. You didn't really want to invest any energy into that. With that being said, it's still in the back of your head. And when tweets are fired out by different accounts, there might be a possibility, or there's talks, you talk to your teammates about it. And I think it definitely wears on you a little bit. Not that, we didn't want to come here. It's just uncertainty is, it's pretty prevalent in the professional ranks. And then you add that into the mix. So, yeah, I don't know. I've been traded more than a few times. So to me, it was like, well, we had 5 months to figure it out after we heard it. So that it was kind of not a huge deal, but usually you're traded the next day, you're in a new city, and then you're figuring it out. But we had a lot of support, like I said, from the fans, but from the organization. The Smiths from the first day showed how much they cared about us and they cared about this team and the city. So that makes you feel welcome, and they've supplied us with everything possible that we need, and they've been great for us.
Is there one thing when people ask you about, playing in Arizona, and I know you don't want to talk negatively about it necessarily, but in terms of the fans were great. I've been out to games at Mullet Arena. It's such a fantastic atmosphere, but day-to-day travel, just overall, all the ways things were run, there's something you just tell guys, this isn't done anywhere else. This is something that was unique for us, that was wow, this is something that was kind of surprising that this happened, or this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the Mullet was obviously different. I didn't hate playing in it. I don't know. It's good ice, and that's usually how I base my opinion off of an arena, how the ice is. So, and as far as, we have a CBA, so a lot of, the hotels you're staying in and all that different stuff, it's pretty standard. You can see when you come to an organization like Utah, though, when they go above and beyond, and that's been the case here. There's, it seems like, I played obviously in Minnesota and Pittsburgh and some organizations that really take care of their players. And like I said, the Smiths obviously own the Jazz, so they know how to run a team and kind of know what it takes. So, I think it's more so you notice when the teams are really taking care of you. So, I mean, it was what it was in Arizona. We got through it we have great staff and great human beings that were involved. We had a 2-month road trip was that 2 years ago? So I'd say that was probably the hardest thing we went through as a team, being away from your families and the scheduling that goes along with that. So that wasn't ideal. So I guess that would be my biggest quarrel with the situation, having been gone for 2 months and dealing with that. But it is what it is. As a hockey player, you try to, you don't even have to try. We're taken care of. We're playing a sport that we love and we grew up playing. So it's hard to really, really complain about much.
Yeah.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that you bring up Pittsburgh, and I'm pretty close to your age. I was the same way. I was my pro team was basically the Gophers. I was obsessed, and then Wild weren't there, so I actually grew up more of a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. And I can confidently say that the trade to bring in you and Jared McCann is probably one of the last smart things that organization has done. We'll just say that that's my subjective opinion, but I need you to talk to me about that mutant Jared McCann, who I still can't believe the Penguins let go of. But did you know he was destined to do what he's been doing?
I mean, he was young in Florida, and obviously still teetering on the young side in Pittsburgh, but you knew he had a skill set that could be elite in the NHL, and obviously he's put that together and carved an unbelievable career so far. But yeah, you don't totally know when they're young. They could score, and there's a lot that goes into the game that doesn't involve scoring. And like I said, I think Jared's been smart enough to, expand his game, his hockey sense, his defensive game, and he's just been unbelievable in Seattle. So I knew he was good. I didn't know he was this good, but you know, that was experience in itself. When we went to Pittsburgh, we got traded game day, and we arrived at 7 p.m. together with our Florida Panther bags after they had just warmed up, said what's up to the guys, and hopped on the ice. So that's a moment I'll never forget with Jared, and it was pretty cool.
A couple more before I let you go, and thank you so much for doing this again. I know you played with a team with Crosby and McDavid, and obviously played in Minnesota here and seeing Kirill up close. Just how would you kind of compare, or any traits that Kirill has that you can kind of that are relatable to the other two guys in terms of what stands out, impresses you the most about him?
Don't forget Barkov. I played with Barkov too.
Yeah, you did too. Yeah,
I'm a big Barkov fan, and I feel like he goes under the radar, or has been in the past. Obviously, winning the cup, and he's a lot more talked about in the league now. But yeah, I mean, all those players have the same traits of. I'd say their focus is probably the biggest thing I noticed. You play a board game of Sid, you're shooting basketball with Sid, like he's just zoned in. He wants to cut your throat, and then in whatever game it is, and then when that's over, he's one of the best human beings you've ever met. So I think those are traits between McDavid and Barkov, really good humans. But when they're on that ice, it's compete, it's get better, and it's just the want to win. It's the elite mindset that I admire, and I've been able to observe and watch a lot of good players. Kirill's obviously one of them who, from the first day, I saw him practice with him. We were doing a 3-on-3 drill in the corner, and this guy was battling as harder than anybody, and I think that's the difference. You go on the ice with Sid, the practice is that much more elevated. Everyone has to work way harder when your best guy is, kind of cutthroat, as I said. So Kirill, very impressive human and very impressive player. So I enjoyed my few years with him, and I do not enjoy playing against him.
That's very fair.
Yeah.
To wrap things up here, we do this for every episode. I got to ask quick, though, how's the golf game?
Terrible.
Yeah,
terrible. It's never been. I was probably better at golf when I was 13 than I am now. I'm not kidding you. So no time for golf. I'll use that as my excuse, but my swing is something comparable to Charles Barkley, I'd say. Not as bad, but pretty ugly. My wife, first time at the driving range, thought I was kidding when I was swinging, so that was a fun one.
That's actually pretty awesome. Well, yeah. Our last question for our good friends over at Waggle Golf. Everyone go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in 10% or throw in SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Up to you. We can swivel this if we need to, but the traditional question is, what's your dream golf foursome? So 3 guys that you would want to be out on the course with. But if you want to pivot it to like 3 guys you want to play pickleball with, like I can deal with that. Sure.
Wow. Well, we'll do it for some golf just for the sake of that's a commonly asked question. And you're in the golf cart with them hanging out. To me, it'd be more about hanging out with those 3 people. So give me a minute. I'll make it a little fun and a little serious. I love Nick Swartz, and he's a Minnesota guy.
Yes.
And I've been a fan of him since I was in high school, and he was Terry on Reno 911. So for the morale and the fun part of it, we'll throw Swartz in there. Gosh.
That's an awesome answer. By the way, like Vikings loss, do we take that pretty tough, or were you ready for it?
I mean, I was excited for them. It was a tough draw for the wild card, but I'll always root for my Vikes. But that was a tough ending. But they had a good season, and we'll just keep getting better, right? It's gonna happen at some point. My wife's a Packers fan. She's from Stevens Point, Wisconsin. So I gotta deal with the cheeseheads on a regular basis. So I have one, my Lucy. She's 4-year-old. She's the only Viking fan in the house with me. So. Yeah, let me think. I don't know. As far as I'd say probably Joe Rogan. I listen to Joe Rogan. I just like how he interviews people, so I'd like to pick his brain on different people. Can't imagine he's a great golfer either. So he'd probably. I don't think this threesome so far is very good. Sorry, Nick. I don't think you're probably a golfer either. And then a fourth. Who would we throw in there? Gosh, everyone's always the Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan. Yeah, who could we throw in there? I'm trying to think of a Minnesota legend. Yeah, I'll throw Paulie Martin in there. I love Paulie Martin. That's a great human being, and I don't know, he'd be a good addition to that foursome.
Awesome. Sounds like a fun group, at least.
Yeah,
You're talking over beers and stuff. So,
yeah.
But thanks so much for doing this for practice today, and looking forward to seeing you next week back in Minnesota. So all the cheers are ready for you out there.
I hear it's cold, so we'll be bundling up for it.
Well, thanks again. Appreciate you guys, and tell Jeff thanks as well for setting it up. So
yeah, sounds good, guys. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, Joe. I do enjoy getting the little heckles tossed over by Hank. And it's great, too, because we're just arming a bunch of people that next time we have Hankinson on, they're going to give us anything we could ask for on him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's all part of the fun, right? Like, we wouldn't know the Nook Bjugstad rule for the Beauty League unless that was asked, right? And there's no such rule for Joe Smith when I go to the Beauty League. No one asks for my autograph when I walk out unless they think I'm a wild player on accident. But it is a pretty cool scene there, and with the guys like that, and it's all for fun, and guys bring their kids too, and it's just a really fun environment. And it does take a half hour for those guys to leave the building and get to the car. Like, it is the red carpet of that. If you can find a red carpet in the data area, that's it.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Joe. The reason I'm even thinking of it is because it came up on Judd's Buds earlier that we recorded. Braden Yeager was doing like a summer, like, kids come out and play street hockey with like some of the Penguins players kind of thing before he got traded. And a kid, straight faced, comes up to him and asks him to sign his stick as Sidney Crosby. He didn't know what to do.
Oh my God.
Have you ever heard of a kid asking for an autograph of a player other than who's signing it?
Like, couldn't he sign it himself? Does he need somebody else to sign that for him?
Well, Crosby wasn't there.
I'm saying, like, you're asking somebody else randomly to sign that name for you that's not you. Like, I could sign a Sidney Crosby autograph. No one's going to think it's real, but.
This is true. 4D chess. Well, let's wrap it up here then, Joe, like we do every week with Keyboard Warriors weekly hot take segment brought to you by our incredible friends, Barrel Theory Beer Company. Check them out at the X this week, Thursday hosting Utah Hockey Club and Saturday hosting the Calgary Flames. You can get their Crowler of the Day in section 105, and you can get Raindrops on Tap sections 112, 217, and club level 36. Or join me. I'll actually be out there in the tap room on Thursday because I'll be out at the game. Hit me up if you guys want to meet up for a beer or just stumble into me at Barrel Theory beforehand. Joe, we've got 3 hot takes on here. We got one that's more NHL, one that's wild, and one that actually pivots over to football. First one here is Connor McDavid, the newest enforcer in the NHL.
3-game suspension, losing $200,000 in mill money. Hey, and that's 2 straight games where he had a allegedly dirty hit, though. Marcus Johansson, the chicken wing on that, no penalty, and then Tyler Myers. So I wouldn't call him the enforcer, but that's a lot of money to lose over a 3-game basis. $200,000.
That's not pocket change. And I love how like emphatic all of the Edmonton Oilers fans and even like the media and different like podcast pundits, like all of them are like, oh, what a dive. What a dive. It's like, the guy's concussed. Like, what are you talking about?
You hit him in the head with your stick. Like what? Like there's no world in which that's like, oh, it is obviously.
Oh, you're talking Garland. I'm talking Johansson. I'm talking Johansson.
Sorry.
That was the chicken wing. No, Garland. I don't think many people were arguing against what happened to Garland. Just the clean stick right to the face.
And again, I get that he was held and annoyed for 15 seconds before that, and they hockey god rules where the top players need to get protected, and that should never have happened, right? He never should have had that annoyed that long, but still, you can't do that. And the Johansson thing, like, it was subtle enough, even on whatever views you had live, where I could see a referee missing that. But if you watched it again, like, it certainly did seem like, Johansson didn't just concuss himself on accident and then miss the game, not out indefinitely because of an alleged missed hit. So.
Well, it's crazy too. I don't remember if it was you or Russo that pointed it out, but like, players like went and asked the ref, like, yo, what happened there? He's like, oh, he caught himself with his stick. It's like, it's not even like remotely true. Like, just say, sorry, I didn't see it. Like, I would respect that plenty, but being like, oh yeah, he hit himself with his own stick. Like, that, you just made that up.
Just a missed call like they did on Saturday in Nashville when your check took a stick to the face. Clearly it was a high stick, whether it was incidental or not. Said, hey, I missed that call. Doesn't make you feel any better, but at least be honest about it.
Nope, totally. Next one here, your colleague, Michael Russo, on his podcast, Worst Seats in the House with Anthony LaPanta, paraphrasing this first part, but basically said, like, you kind of get the vibe that you can count on Spurgeon and Brodin both missing like 15 to 25 games a year at this point, just with where they're at, breaking down how they play a hard-nosed game. Where I'll direct quote him is saying, sometimes maybe you have to go the Ryan Suter approach, or sometimes you just let them get the puck first. How do you feel about that?
Let them get the puck first?
Yeah. I also just love like calling it the Ryan Suter approach, because that's just going to enrage so many fans.
Anytime you mention Ryan Suter and that whole thing, especially related to Spurgeon too, or like whatever.
Well, Spurgeon was the guy he was sending into the corners because he wouldn't go.
Yeah. And again, like, it's hard from our seats, right, in the press box to like call a guy injury prone or say this and this. Like, they play these tough minutes, and like Spurgeon's case, a smaller guy, and he doesn't play a finesse game. He plays in the hard areas, and he does a really good job for his size and being one of the top defensive defensemen in the league. But when you say the best availability is availability, related to the Wild and how important those guys are to this team, as you've seen the last 3 weeks, knowing you're still $15 million in cap hell, whatever, like, it probably does worry you a little bit in terms of like the durability going forward for those guys, and no fault of their own, or, try to get injured. It's not indictment on them as people or players. It's just like, they're just so important and they can't be replaced no matter how much you like Bogosian or Chisholm or Merrill. It's just clearly not the same. Yeah. And guys have to play bigger minutes because of it. And it's just hard to know as a staff or management group, okay, well, we can plan for these 15 games that they'll be missing, or if this happens. But like Brodin played a monster game against St. Louis, right? A major reason why they won that game. They played a 2-minute and 44-second shift to close out that game where they came back from behind, and he got hurt by blocking a shot, right? So, like, it's hard for me to blame a guy like that when he plays that kind of warrior shift, helps you win a game that no business winning. And all of a sudden, they're like, well, this guy gets hurt a lot, But you see how it happens and how gutsy of a player he is, and he's not shying away from those things. So a shot off the foot in an area where it's not padded, and I don't know. It's a hard thing because from a big picture point of view, you want to have these guys available, and it does affect your team. But to watch them play on the ice and know this is not like turf toe here. These aren't injuries that aren't like injuries that are minor. If they were minor in the playoffs, they'd be playing. I think Kirill would be playing if it were a playoff game right now, totally. Right? I would imagine potentially Brodin might be playing now if it were a playoff game. But I think in some cases that they're being really cautious, knowing how important these guys are, that even though it does suck for them to be missing these games and losing some of these games without them, that they don't want to get into a situation where they were in previous years where guys get injured in April and then they're missing the games where it can be your season's over.
Yeah. No, and it's funny though, because I agree with Russo's sentiment of like, hey, like it's okay if you want to pull back a little bit, guys. Like let's like try and preserve ourselves, but just the fact that he basically said like, oh yeah, just be Ryan Suter and refuse to go into the corners. That I just that's meat on the bone. You can't pass it up. It's too good. This last one here, Joe, brace yourself. This is a trigger warning for you, especially on the heels of the football game tonight. Allie Ray, super fan that many of you know on social media for all Gopher sports and the Minnesota Vikings. Hot take. JJ McCarthy was a game manager in college. Why are people so obsessed? Is it because the Vikings rarely draft QBs high? I know he's going to start next year, and that's the right move, but the amount of people thinking he's the next Brady is pretty delusional. I will hang up and listen.
Oh, man.
Take a sip.
I get people's talking about game manager stuff, and I think people probably talk about Tom Brady's game manager early in his career too, before he became the GOAT. Not saying that McCarthy's gonna be Tom Brady.
Where'd Brady play in college?
What's that?
Where'd Brady play in college?
He's my classmate in Michigan, actually.
Oh, shit.
But I think for a player to lead a team to the national championship, he's far more than a game manager. And you saw some of the throws he made against Bama in the championship game. I think no one will call him a game manager. Does this mean he'll be an NFL All-Pro? I don't know that. I think it's a worthy conversation in this summertime to know of, like, do you franchise tag Sam Darnold? And do you say those last couple of games are an anomaly or on your offensive line, or do you just jump ship or whatever? But, I think McCarthy will be a good NFL quarterback for a long time. It's just a matter of, like, you're a team in the Vikings that just won 14 games and the expectations are so high. What are you comfortable with going to next year? What'll make you feel like, do you want to have a JJ McCarthy and then Daniel Jones, the backup? Does that make you feel good? Or do you go spend $38 million for Sam Darnold's franchise tag with the chance that JJ McCarthy outshines him and he's the guy?
I kind of go the opposite, where it's okay. Those last two games were bad. Sam, that hurt whatever money you're going to get out on the market. You want to be here with Kevin O'Connell. Let's make a deal. Let's come back for something friendly. We don't have to go full franchise tag for the year. Like what?
Yeah.
Will you stay for something more reasonable? And hey, it's an open competition. If you play better than JJ, it's your spot.
So you're telling somebody who is headed for the biggest payday of his career after everything, like, you'll take less than a franchise tag and what 1 year deal? What are you going to give him on this sweetheart deal?
I mean,
how many years?
Contracts are made up in the NFL. So give him a 2 or 3 year deal, knowing that you can cut bait after 1 or 2 years anyways, because the contracts make no sense. But I don't know.
Money,
he's probably going to go for the payday. I get it. But it's also like the teams that need quarterbacks, it's not going to be fun. And you're probably not getting a guaranteed contract. So, hey, sometimes comfort is worthwhile, but no, it's probably going to be franchise tag.
Possibly. I mean, Kirk Cousins got $100 million guaranteed to play 11 games, and now it's Fox podcaster. So I don't know what's wrong with that.
Sounds like the life.
Like, career earnings are like $240 million. And how many playoff wins does he have?
He's done it so well.
A nice guy, wears Kohl's well. He does all that different outfits, and he's like great on the TV and
socks with flip flops. He's got it down.
He's an all-American guy, just a regular Joe with $250 million in his bank account. So.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly.
Okay, not a hot take there.
I saw this one and I immediately bookmarked it. I'm like, this needs to be put in front of Joe. He needs to speak sense to the people.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not going to tell Ellie Ray what to do or what not to do and everything like that. But I'm just saying, like, he's not a game manager. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Tom Brady, but I think he's going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. It's just a matter of when that starts and whether it should be now or not.
For sure. Well, thank you again, Barrel Theory, bringing us another week of hot takes. Plug away, Joe. What does everyone need to be checking out on The Athletic this week?
Well, Magrusa and I did a meaty mailbag that by the time Wednesday should have already popped on the website on Tuesday about, year off, whether he's coming, when he's coming, whether it's Brock Nelson's a trade candidate or free agency, other UFA names in summertime, Kirill, a bunch of other, the goalie situation for next year, a lot of different things in our mailbag. So that'll be come up then. As we speak the next day, which will be the day before in podcast land when it comes out, I'll be sitting down with Zeev on the campus of Denver University for a feature on him. People are excited about him potentially joining the team at the end of the year and see what happens with that. Sat down with David Carl. The next NHL hottest name is a head coach, whether he's leaving or staying, and what makes him special. Like, obviously a guy who has had a lot of impact on Zeev and Lorenz and other Wild prospects. So a lot of stuff coming, and obviously with the season in full swing heading to the Four Nations, there'll be other stories leading into that. But I think once these dog days of the season are over and getting everybody healthy, it'll be a really big push towards end of the year. So a lot of stuff be flowing here at the Athletic.
March is going to be pretty insane. That's for sure. Well, if you're new to Fellowship of the Rink and enjoyed the episode, hitting the subscribe button, leaving a 5-star review helps us more than you know. And if you're more into video, whether that's getting clips of the episodes, watching the full thing live, because for some reason you want to see our faces, or you want to get some of the highlight reels and prospect coverage on the channel, go check out the Soda Pod on YouTube. But as always, really appreciate you guys for tuning in for yet another week of Fellowship of the Rink. You stay classy, stay to hockey.